One thing that bears out the revolutionary character of this approach is that when one teacher in a school creates the kind of classroom that I was describing, that is apt to become quite a threat to the traditional teachers in the school, and they make life pretty difficult for that teacher, because the students go into the next classroom and say, "Why can't this be like the class we just had in mathematics? That was exciting and a lot of fun, and we could talk and we could think." And so the teacher realizes that they're being compared unfavorably with the person-centered teacher. And it has sometimes led to teachers losing their position, being edged out of a school. It's very rare. I think of one teacher who one year was rated as the best teacher in the school, and the next year was carefully pushed out of that school because of the fact that it was a threat.
You mentioned earlier back to basics, and then you said that what you represent, you consider really the basics. That's not what most people are talking about as back to basics. What do you consider most basic in this process, and why?
Now, from my point of view?
Yeah, from your point of view, and are the schools doing it, or how can we better do it?
No, I think that it's a sad commentary on our society that of all the institutions in our culture, education is probably the most authoritarian, and yet presumably we are raising citizens to live in a democracy. And it's absurd. They get no chance to function in a democratic way in the traditional school. They don't make choices. They don't make decisions and follow them responsibly. They have to do as they're told, not what they are most interested in. It's a straight authoritarian hierarchical setup, and yet that's what our government and what our leaders at the present time are advocating. And as I say, I think it goes back to a fundamental lack of belief in a democratic way of life.
Will test scores still drop if we go to if we don't make them toe the line, do the authoritarian thing?
Test scores will go up, and that's what this research shows, that if you really want better, if you really want improvement in the 3 R's, to stick to that for a moment, you would adopt a person-centered approach in the classrooms. And that's what is threatening to educators. They don't like to hear that. They don't like to know it. Certainly politicians don't seem to like to know that these days.
It's certainly not the public mystique.
You also had some interesting data about that, didn't you?
Well, to me, it's interesting that the comparisons I've been reading most recently of the low test scores now tend to be contrasted with the test scores of, say, 10 and 15 years ago, when in fact the schools were supposedly so permissive and child-centered, not doing their job, and yet we're worse now. And it seems something of an irony. We haven't thought through this very deeply, it appears.
I believe that's true, and I'm interested in that picture. I hadn't quite realized those facts, but it's exactly what I would predict, that the more we decide you've got to toe the line, the more test scores will drop. I don't think